Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Monday Night Show on Boro Fan TV with me, James Hutchinson. It looks as though Boro's season is going to end with a whimper, Boro fans, as they fell to another defeat at the weekend at the Riverside to Queen's Park Rangers. Joining me to look back on that game tonight and ahead to the fixtures this week with Rotherham and Sheffield Wednesday are Tony Guest, David Campbell and Damon LaRoche. Welcome to the show, boys.
Evening, lads. Evening, James.
Great to see you all again, boys. Boro fans, obviously there's loads to get through. We're going to talk about those three fixtures which we've mentioned, and also at the end of the programme we'll have a chat about, if we've got time, the European Super League. As always, we love to hear about your thoughts and views on all things Boro and football, so you know the drill. Get in touch with us, share your thoughts and views on tonight's show. So, lads, without further ado, we'll get on to Saturday's game. Damon, I'll come to you first, mate. I think many of us accepted before the weekend that the playoffs had gone some time ago, and our fear was that the season would probably peter out, and that appears to be the case, doesn't it?
It does. Since
sorry, was it David or me?
Yeah, you Damo, you can go Damo. You're all right, mate.
Oh, sorry. What it is that it's just petering out, isn't it? The season, and it's Saturday's result was like watching paint dry for the first half hour. Honestly, tried a bit in the second half, but we should have really had a draw, really, because that should have stood the penalty. The penalty, but we should have it should have been sent off. The keeper was sent off, but we should have had the goal. The goal should have stood.
Interesting point. We'll get on to that later on, Damon. Tony, we said on last week's show that Neil Warnock would have a big call to make regarding the goalkeeper, and the decision he came to was to drop Marcus Bettinelli and bring in Jordan Archer. Were you happy with that choice, and what did you make of Archer's performance?
Yeah, I was happy. What he said in his pre-match and post-match comment was that he told Archer 10 days previous to the game against QPR on Saturday that he was going to be playing that game. Said he'd been working hard in training. I don't know how a goalkeeper works hard in training, but he said he'd been working hard in training. So he said the lad deserves a chance, and I don't think he was definitely not at fault for the first goal. It was just an absolute worldie. Yeah. And the second goal, Warnock's made his feelings felt and heard about the second goal, placing the blame purely at Jed Spencer's feet. But I felt, you know what, James, I felt a bit more confident because I think it was early on in the first half, his starting position was a million times better than what Bettinelli's was, where when there was a ball going over the top, you were expecting their centre forward or their forward players to end up with the ball. But he was commanding his box. He was coming to the edge of the box, and nullifying the attacks from there. And like you say, we haven't seen enough of him. I don't think we're going to see enough of him to think if he's going to be our number one next season. But it was 100% better than what Bettinelli's been offering.
Yeah, it was
a bit of a mix up Bettinelli, but I wouldn't mind seeing Sol Bryn get a bit of experience in there.
I think he's alluded to that today, hasn't he, Warnock, that Sol Bryn might get a chance. And we've got a mixed bag of feedback from the fans there, saying that some were glad that Bettinelli was dropped. A.H. Robbins, Bristol City fans have said that they believe Bettinelli's better. But obviously, Tony, we've seen over the course of the season, Bettinelli, he's had good games and bad games, but it just felt as though it was the right time for a change, didn't it?
Yeah, like you say, we had a spell where he was keeping clean sheets left, right and centre. But I think that was a lot to do with who we were playing and the way our back five at the time were playing. Mm-hmm. He just doesn't... It's got to start from the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper will pass his confidence on to his defenders. And that hasn't been happening this season. So from the start of the season, shots that's been coming into the middle of his goal, which he's been saving, that he's either parried them back into the middle of the goal or totally missed them, you know what I mean? His goalkeeping skills from outside, shots coming in from outside the box, considering he was England under 21, I just don't get it, James, because he was absolutely dreadful. I nearly said someone else there, but he's definitely, like you say, we've been brought up on good goalkeepers at the Boro, and you know he's underneath Brad Guzan for me. You know what I mean? And he was a clown. So
I think
it's somewhat one that needs to work.
Yeah. Alfie Hood there, I think, hit the nail on the head when he said it's vital that we find a keeper in their prime for next season. I think that's maybe on the understanding that maybe Solbrin might be the number 2, but we definitely need an established keeper for next season if we're going to go anywhere. David, I'll come on to you now, pal. With the greatest respect, at the weekend, we were up against Queen's Park Rangers, who were one place below us in the table. Another side were little to play for. And let's not forget, last Wednesday night, they got turned over 3-1 at Rotherham. How concerned were you by the fact that in the first 20 minutes, we didn't lay a glove on them? We got nowhere near them at all, did we?
No, both teams had nothing to play for, but it showed they had a bit of pride upon themselves and wanted to get a bit of confidence going. And we just wanted to turn up, have a stroll in the park, thought it was going to be easy. And let's be honest, I think Saturday just highlighted the problems we've got at the club and the players that don't want to be here. He wanted players to prove a point. There was only 1 or 2 who I think could have took any positivity out of that performance on Saturday, and that's clutching at straws.
Who were those 2 for you, David?
Balassi and Watmore did well. Watmore was busy running down the channels. It was probably the best time I've seen him play as a lone striker, to be honest with you. He's obviously played well this season, but not as a lone man by himself. And Balassi was busy. Cabano did okay, but in glimpses. And the rest just looked like the season had been finished. I don't know what about you guys, but they're the only 3 that stood out for me.
Yeah.
It's happened too many times this season where for the first 20 minutes, it was just absolutely soul-destroying watching it. And to go, like, concede 2 goals in 3 minutes, you just felt like shotting the laptop in the corner. But like you say, we did show a bit of fight. We did find a way back into it eventually, and it was just another one of them slow starts, which we've become used to at the Boro. And you just sat waiting for something to happen to kick us into gear.
Yeah, Damon, I'm just going to say that David mentioned there the fact that probably 2 of our better players on the day were Balassi and Cabano. They're 2 players that we've got on loan with us at the minute, so they're not players that are contracted beyond the end of this season. So how much of a worry is it for you that 2 of our better players at the minute are loan players rather than players that are here that have got a longer term future at the club?
I just think you need players who are going to be fully committed to this club, not players that are like going to end, be just loans and then like leave and then not coming up. Because Cabano, if Fulham go down, he's not going to stay. He's want to fight with Fulham in next season, isn't he? So same goes Balassi. You're not going to want to keep him on 70,000 a week wages. He was on at Everton or something.
Yeah,
I don't think we can afford that. That's a certainty. So you've got to look elsewhere. And for me, you've got to look young with pace.
And Tony, that's the thing. If Warnock didn't know it beforehand, now, and I know he's alluded to it again at the weekend, he's got a massive rebuilding job on his hands this summer, hasn't he?
Well, he's changed his mind, James, hasn't he? Where a few weeks back there wasn't much tinkering needed to be done with the squad. He was quite happy with everything. Then 5-6 weeks down the line, I don't know, he must have been using someone else's eyes, because then he started to realise what us fans have known for a long time. He needs a complete overhaul, and it's when he's making statements like that, that's what starts to worry me. I was gunning for him tonight, Warnock, after Saturday's performance, but after hearing his post-match press conference, if he's having a similar problems to what he had last season when he thought he'd got all the, when he thought he'd got rid of the click, getting rid of Guesty and Shotton, Clayton, Friend. When he might have thought he'd cleaned the dressing room out, but I think the deep root problem in our dressing room for a long time's been Britt, and I don't know who he's dragging along with him at the moment.
Yeah.
I dare say Fletcher's one. I don't know who the other 2 or 3 are. So it can't be nice for him. So
I think
I mellowed a bit when I heard his post-match comments, because I was absolutely seething when there's nothing to play for and you're getting beat 2-1 when there's 10 minutes to go. You're at home against 10 men.
Yeah.
The game was crying out because Balassi was absolutely torturing them and putting some decent balls in. He brought Johnson on to provide from the left-hand side. And with 10 minutes to go, he took our main supply off, who had been putting balls into the box, and brought Britt Assombalonga on. Yeah. We had absolutely nothing to play for.
Yeah.
It didn't matter if we got beat 3-1 or 4-1. As long as we'd have gone for it, the Boro fans wouldn't have minded. But it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of things worrying me about Warnock, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt after his post-match press conference, because if he does have to, get these players out the club to get all the bad blood out and then see where he goes from there. So at the moment, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, but we've got 4 games left, and the next 2 are against 2 relegation-threatened teams. And if I was Sheffield Wednesday fans and Rotherham fans, I'd be looking at a guaranteed 3 points.
Yeah. We'll touch on that in a minute, Tony. I mean, David, you might have seen some of the comments from the viewers coming across the screen there, and there's 1 or 2 that saying, I've lost the name of the person that said it now, but if you weren't aware of his previous achievements and what he's done in the game and his experience, looking at just the last 10 games, would people be normally calling out a manager like Warnock at the minute? And there's other comments there saying, do you think Warnock's lost the plot? Gene Watts has been in touch there. I know you've sometimes been critical recently of Neil Warnock. Do you think he should be under a little bit more scrutiny at the minute, David?
100%. If there was fans in the ground, it would be a complete different situation we'd all be talking about. He's earned the respect of keeping us up last season, but it's just not the performances on the pitch which is, that is tarnishing his tenure. It's the stuff he's coming out in the media and saying he's trying to make the fans sound stupid now. What frustrates me, along with, I'm sure, all you guys, is when he contradicts himself. Akpom, he was our number 1 signing. He goes through a bit of a bad patch and he says, it's the recruitment's fault. They wanted to sign him on video evidence. It was like, well, you've just told us this and now you're telling us this. And fans don't forget that. And it's similar with Britt Assombalonga, who's saying he's a natural leader in the camp. And then he took the armband from him and said, I only want players here. You can't fool fans. We're not daft. And I think that's what's catching him out. He's done a lot of good stuff at the club. He's bringing the fans and the players interacting better. But he's treating the fans like mugs. And when you don't get performances on the pitch or results, it quickly changes. Luckily, Tony Pulis, as much as people dislike him, his football was really poor, but he got results. Warnock was, but he isn't now. So it's going to flip.
Interesting, Portmans. Let us know what you think. David Foster's been straight in touch. What do you make of that, Damon? He said, are we true Boro fans here, not liking Warnock? And do you think Warnock's above criticism, or do you not agree with that?
I don't like I say. My opinion on it is that I think he'll be judged next season with who he brings in.
Right.
Yes, he's got the play. He can only work with the players he's got, and unfortunately, we've got a load of rubbish here at the moment, and he needs to wheel them out, as Tony says, and bring in fresh faces. And then, as soon as we bring in the fresh faces, we might see an improvement. But until then, I'm going to say for next season it will probably be even judged then for me.
Dave, I agree with that 100%. But this is his team now. Look at all the players he brought in last summer and in January, and currently this is his team, and that's what worries me. As much as I am on board with Warner and I want it to work next season, I can see issues arising.
It's pretty much similar. It's very similar to Pulis, where he was saying he didn't have his players, and he had a massive change around the players. He brought a lot of his own players in. Then he started blaming everyone else. Like you say, the comments coming in for Neil Warnock, saying that none of us like him. You know, what Warnock's done for this club, the end of last season and the majority of this season, is unbelievable with the players that he's at his disposal. But the way things are panning out at the moment, like David's touched on, like a typical Championship manager, he starts contradicting himself, and they start mugging the fans off. You know, as if we don't know the full ins and outs of what goes on in a Premier League or a Championship dressing room. But we're not mugs. We've been watching football for a long time now, and what's concerning is Mick McCarthy. They must have been using the same script, because he said some of the same, exactly the same things as what Neil Warnock's saying. So we're not stupid. We watch other clubs. We read what other managers are saying. No, none of us on this channel dislike Neil Warnock. You know, I never ever wanted him to manage our club, but he's here now, and I think he's done a good job. But I think the way things have gone since Christmas, he could have done a lot better with the players that he's brought in. And, you know, and our running to the end of the season has been absolutely abysmal. And Neil Maddison and the commentator on BBC T's touched on it on Saturday. If there'd have been people in that ground on Saturday for them first 20 minutes, he'd have been getting it big time, no matter if you like Neil Warnock or not.
I mean,
can I just say, I've just seen Gav comment there.
I'm going to put it on the screen, Yeah,
and he's 100% right. It's every season we're having the same issues. There's no long-term build, and I think that comes with the managers we're appointing, and I think that's what frustrates the fans most, that we're just jumping from manager to manager and hoping it clicks. There's no long-term strategy there.
Do you think Neil Warnock, Damon, is a little bit frustrated, though? I mean, because I can hear the frustration coming out from you lads tonight. I can see it in the comments from the fans. Do you think, in a way, Neil Warnock's frustrated with the players as well? Because I think how we've been starting games recently, Saturday, a case in point. And I also thought we actually started the second half poorly as well, until they went down to 10 men. And I just think, Damon, is it that he's frustrated with the players as much as us fans, and that he's just absolutely almost beyond knowing what to do next because of how these players have performed in the last few weeks?
I just think it's like he's frustrated. We're frustrated watching, to be honest, because it's more or less the same old. It's up, isn't it? Every game, it's like a game of like watching tennis, really. You're heading it back and forward, back and forward. It's not on the floor. You're not passing it like like you should be watching videos of old Barcelona with Xavi and Iniesta playing. That's what they should be watching each and every week. Watching how they're played, because
it's decent in the books to play like
standard
that
together. But still, I'm getting that really.
I mean, Tony, can you
just watching them? If you can watch them, and it's poor recruitment, isn't it? Over the years, it knocks me off, but it's poor recruitment, unfortunately. And the book has to stop with Mr. Gibson, unfortunately, and he has to come out and say, well, I'm going to back Warnock for next season. If he's not going to back him, then Warnock will be off.
I think he will back him, because I think that's probably why he's staying on for another year. So I think he will be supported this summer. I mean, another thing, Tony, I was just going to mention is Neil Warnock said after the game that he learned a lot about certain players after Saturday's performance. Who do you think that was directed to?
Well, like you say, he's still only a kid, but Jed Spence. God knows what's happened to that kid. I'm hoping that he's not one of these players in the clique, but he's been absolutely woeful. There's got to be someone in North Ormsby who can play in his position a lot better than what he is at the moment, because you just know as soon as he gets the ball, it's, he's the type of player when you were a kid you wouldn't pass to at the moment, because he's absolutely dreadful. But there's got to be a reason behind that, James. You know what I mean? And until his fans find out what his problem is, it's just going to keep getting dragged on and dragged on. And if he stays at the club next season and there's fans in, he's just going to get annihilated, and God knows where that's going to take him. But that could be the problem. He might like to perform in front of a large crowd. Do you know what I mean? And you know, it just looks like the kid's not interested in nothing that we do. He doesn't look like he doesn't want to work back. When he gets forward, all he wants to do now is pass the ball back inside or backwards. He doesn't want to take the man on, and he's totally gone upside down to the Jed Spence that, you know, burst into our first team.
Mm-hmm. Just got some beauties here. We'll comment in a second about this from Mark Knott, who said, it's not about the good or bad players, it's the desire to win that I haven't seen since Christmas. And he's also pointing the finger at poor recruiting at board level. But this is comment of the night so far. You own this show, Michael Pellin. He said he can't watch the Rotherham game on Wednesday as his TV's in next door's garden, and he got there at about 3:20 on Saturday afternoon. Totally understand that. I mean, David,
we keep knocking recruitment,
yeah,
right? But you know, two of our best players this season have been Dykesteel and Boro, and Mrs. Brown's boy, before he got injured, you know, we were starting to get a tune out of him. So, you know, recruitment is poor, but you know, us as fans, we're criticising recruitment, but like you say, two of our best players this season.
And that's
you know,
Jacob Ross mentioned earlier on, lads. David, he mentioned about injuries. Now, I know all clubs have had it, and it's been a difficult season this year for everybody, with the games all being like really close together as they have been. But if you look, we lost Fletcher early doors. Brown's been out with a long-term injury. Dykesteel's been out with a long-term injury. We've been hit as hard as anybody, I think, with injuries, and we've got a small squad as well. And surely that's got to have played a part in how things have nosedived really since January, February.
Yeah, you could argue to a certain point of that. We were lucky with injuries before Christmas, weren't we? But I thought Warnock was better with a smaller squad. And then since we've got a bigger squad from January, we should rule out the injuries because he got the reinforcements that he was wanting. So I don't think he can make the excuses for injuries from January onwards because he's got the squad there. I just think he's made too many poor choices and chopping and changing. But you guys mentioned before, without Dale Fry and Tavernier on our side, we just look very disjointed and we just crumble, don't we? And that's worrying to a certain aspect that they're so young, but yet they're our most reliable players.
Yeah. Damon, I was just going to say, we've touched on it very briefly a few seconds ago. Sorry, Damon, I was just going to say, we've got 1 point from our last 5 games. I do have a few technical issues. I was just going to say, Damon, 1 point in the last 5 games, and I think that's 60 feet in 11 at the Riverside since the turn of the year. As Tony mentioned earlier on, it would be very different if fans were in that ground at the moment, wouldn't it?
100%. I mean, the fans make a difference. The COVID situation, yeah, it's been no good for everyone. But without fans, football's nothing, is it? Football isn't nothing. It's just, and playing what crowd noise into a game. It's not the same, is it? Come on. I mean, you want fans there. You want to feel the atmosphere. You want to go for a pint after the game or before the game. Sitting there and wait for the match hype. You know, that's what football's all about.
Yeah, agree with you, mate. And Tony, I don't know about you. I know I've heard a lot the last few days in the press about it doesn't matter if you finish 8th or 14th. It's no prize money in the Championship, this, that, and the other. I don't like to see us get beat at anything, whether it's in a game in the Championship now, pre-season, nothing. I don't like us getting beat at anything, I'll be honest. So how much of a concern for you is this run of form that we're on, that it might have a hangover effect at the start of next season, or do you think that won't be the case?
They'll have a massive detrimental effect on us, James. You know, you want your team to be winning, you know, or if they're not winning, you don't want them to get beat. I want us to go into these next 4 games and win them all and win them well. You know what I mean? We've got Rotherham and Sheffield Wednesday coming up, 2 teams fighting for their life. So that'll add a bit of extra spice to the game. But I don't want us rolling over and have our bellies tickled by teams who are, you know, showing a bit more passion and a bit more fight and commitment. Because, you know, that's the reason why we watch our club. When we get beat, if we put a shift in and, you know, like Saturday's defeat was a bit harsh. Damon touched on the goal which should have stood, but we were poor, but we had a couple of chances to win that. You know, why they keep falling to George Saville, I'll never know. You know, I think if it had felt at Balassi or Cabano, any of them headers, and, you know, would have been going in 2-2 at half-time. But then again, you had the Balassi with Watmore.
Yeah.
A massive chance missed there to go in at 2-2, which would have been a massive injustice to QPR, by the way. But no, I don't want to see our team. I don't want to see our team drop the bits in these last 4 games. Win these 4 games, have a good pre-season, and you're set up for a good start in August, James. You know, no matter what league we're in, whether it's the Premier League, invited, or still in the Championship.
Yeah, well, agree with you, pal. Well, we'll put QPR to bed now, lads. David, I'll come to you first. Rotherham on Wednesday night. That defeat on Saturday left us 11th in the table. And as Tony said there, David, they're scrapping for the lives, Rotherham. Do you think we've got the physical capability of standing up to the challenge we're going to face there on Wednesday?
Potentially, if we had a full fit squad, as in having Fry back there and going 5 at the back, but because we don't seem interested and we've got nothing to play for, their directness, they're going to steamroll us, absolute steamrollers. Defensively, they're very direct, and I think we're just not going to cope. We've seen us concede goals prior in the season from throw-ins and stuff like that. All that's going to come at us on Wednesdays. It's a must-win game for Rotherham.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see the selection. I agree with a lot of the fans are saying I'd like to see some youngsters, but if we put them in and we get hammered, it ain't going to build their confidence moving forward. So better you devil you know. And I'd like to see us stick with just certain players for the rest of the season. Archer, via the direct, I can't see him coping very well at all.
Well, it's going to be a tough one. Here's one for you, Damon. Obviously, Rotherham are 3rd bottom at the moment. Derby are 4th bottom. Who would you rather went down, Rotherham or Derby?
Probably Derby, to be honest. Because Rotherham at least shown a bit of fight, you know what I mean? They've got a good forward there, and he'll be a danger for us come Wednesday. That Michael Smith, is it? He's a really good player.
Ex-Darlington.
He's very. Is it? Yeah, he used to be at Darlington. Yeah, he's a really good player. I wouldn't mind him at the Boro, to be honest. But I think Sheffield Wednesday are gone. But it's just down to it's a scrap. Who's gonna fight there, but I feel sorry for him as well. So, but it is what it is.
The week.
You want Derby down, David? How about you, Tony?
Oh, Derby, definitely. Yeah. I think he's sold the club now, hasn't he, Mel Morris? I just like we've seen him go down. You know, they've had massive.
Sorry, mate. It's like past the parcel, that stadium, isn't it?
Yeah, they've had some massive new investors coming at Derby, and they've given Rooney his backing. They've given Rooney the backing, but yeah, I'd love to see Derby go down just for the way they've got away with this fair play carry on. But
yeah,
that Spanish owner of Derby was on TalkSport last week saying in 5 years he's going to have Derby in the Champions League, buying the best players. Yeah, let's go to League One and start from scratch.
Yeah. Have them challenging with Sunderland next season. That'll be good. Yeah.
David just Mason Mount.
Yeah. They did have some good players there, but yeah, you wonder how things work for them to have the players they had the last couple of years there. But David, just going to say, Rotherham, they've got 6 games to play still in the last 2.5 weeks. Do you actually see them beating the drop, David?
I thought the last 2 home games that they had were very winnable and they've struggled. But they could build confidence by beating us. So I think there's a lot of riding on them. If they get beat or don't beat us, I think that's them more or less down for confidence. But if they beat us, it only takes a few games to turn that around. There's a gap there and there's hope there. And whilst there's hope, you put everything into it. So I actually thought Birmingham were gonna slide down until they got rid of our mate Kranker, and Lee Bowyer's done a good job there.
Yes, he has. I think it's safe to say, lads, everybody wants Derby to go down. So it might be one of the few times that, not that we want Boro to get beat, but if the result went against us on Wednesday night, there might be a little bit of a silver lining to it. So we'll get that predictions for Wednesday night. Damon, you can go first, mate. What do you reckon the score will be at the New York Stadium on Wednesday?
Obviously, I have to be positive and say 2-1, but in realistic, we'll probably get beat from 1-0, something like that.
Tony, what do you reckon on Wednesday?
The tester again, isn't it? Like you say, it's even harder when there's no for us to play for, but it'd be nice to see that Coburn get a start. And I was listening to Radio Tees and they were raving about, is it Malley, the midfielder?
Yeah,
and
Conor Malley.
The way they were talking about him, he sounds a bit like Mason Mount or someone like that type of player who can travel with the ball in the midfield. So if that's the case, get them both in. Like Dave said, if we get battered, it doesn't do them any good. But in them 2 positions, if they're seeing plenty of the ball, it's going to help them a great deal. So as always, I'm going to go for the 2-0 Boro win.
We've laughed before here, lads, when we've done the show and we've said we've been in a run of maybe 6 without a win, and everybody comes out and says Boro win. It's one of the worst ones tonight. We've got everybody saying here we're going to get beat. I've got a 0-0 draws, our best results so far. I think, Steve Golby's gone a 1-1. What do you reckon, David? What's your take on Wednesday night?
I'm just glad Damon went first, so I didn't sound too negative. But I've been looking at all the scores, and I was just about to say what you said, James. Every time we've gone confident, think we're going to win, we get beat, and now everybody thinks we're going to get beat. We'll go win, won't we? It's typical.
Yeah.
No, I can't see us getting anything. I think 2-0 to Rotherham. I think they'll be just too much, and they'll want it too much for us. And because we're not for the fight, I think we'll just get steamrolled over.
Yeah. I think that's the key to it, isn't it? If we're up for the fight, and that's what we're going to have to match above all else, I think on Wednesday, is that we're going to battle Rotherham, because that's all you're going to get there. It's going to be very similar in a way to the Barnsley game, which for the first hour, we did match them in the battle, but then obviously we had the error from the corner and then it went downhill from there. But it's going to be, I think, a similar sort of game Wednesday night. So we'll see what it brings. And then at the weekend, boys,
if Warnock James true to his word, about these 4 players in the clique, if he doesn't discard them for Wednesday night's game, he was trying to dig himself out of a hole by saying we've got a small squad and I have to put up with him. He doesn't have to put up with him, really, James, does he? You know what I mean? So them players, he was quick to get rid of Guesty. He got rid of him after a couple of days. So if he knows who the exact 4 players are, they should go nowhere near that Fest team for these last 4 games.
You've hit the nail on the head there, Guesty. And you know what's more worrying? 3 of those 4 players have been starting in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
So if he's known that, then why is he starting them?
Yeah.
Is it an admission then that he doesn't think there's enough to back up for these next 4 games?
Yeah, I think
like positive effect on the team. And he'd rather put players that are causing a bit of a toxic changing room by the sounds of it at the moment. He'd rather start with them than give an opportunity to other people. How concerning is that then?
Just sums up where we are as a football club.
He's probably thinking. Yeah, he's probably thinking because he's short on numbers, isn't he? I mean, if he had a fully fit squad, then I don't think them players would be in. The likes of Spence and it'd be Drykesdale, wouldn't it, and things like that. But unfortunately, he has to go with what he's got, and we have to accept what he's got. unfortunately, until the end of the season. But I think the rebuild needs to start now rather than leave it too late and then slow recruitment, as it is, as always.
Yeah. Well, boys, the weekend brings another team from South Yorkshire who are in big relegation trouble, probably even bigger than Rotherham, actually. And that's Sheffield Wednesday. And David, we spoke some time ago, actually, about a big club going down this season. And it looks as though, I mean, they could even arrive at the Riverside on Saturday already relegated. How much of a surprise is that for you, David?
Massive surprise, because they are a big club. You and Guesty touched it upon, I think it was October, didn't you, for saying how much they're going to struggle. And I know they had the point deduction, but you thought with the appointment of Pulis they would have enough experience to get out of that position early on in the season, but they've just never got going, and then sacked managers. Then they had the temporary manager for a long period. They've made some very, very strange decisions as a football club this season. So rightly so, they should be down there. No more so I would like to see anyone go down than Sheffield Wednesday. I hate Hillsborough. I hate the club. It's just one of those teams I've despised for years, and I think they've always punched above the weight. But yeah, they've made some odd decisions, and that's all it takes. We were so nearly there with the Woodgate appointment, weren't we? So you can feel for the Sheffield Wednesday fans.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Steve Goldby's with you on that one. He said he doesn't like Sheffield Wednesday, and he won't be sad to see them go down. I mean, Tony, from an away day, it's always been one of my favourites, actually, going to Hillsborough. I've always enjoyed going there. I don't know how you feel about that, Tony.
Well, like you say, I'm older than these two young lads on here, and Sheffield Wednesday are a massive club.
Yeah.
Like you say, you know the history. Hillsborough was always a FA Cup semi-final ground. It's one of the best grounds you can go watch football at for me. It's an amazing stadium.
Yeah.
Like you say, the street houses around it, you can have all the people who live around the ground, they come out and they have a natter. They might be trying to flog you the odd bit, but it's a fantastic place to go watch football. And then for Sheffield the city to be having two teams relegated, it must be completely demoralising for the place. I'm not too fussed that they're going down, you know what I mean? But then again, that Sheffield Wednesday team that we're talking about absolutely destroyed us last season at the Riverside. They were one of the best teams I've seen. So I know they lost. Is it Joe? I know they lost him to Reading, but God knows what's gone on there. And like you say, they took the poison chalice, didn't they, when they took Pulis on as manager, and that was never ever going to end very good for them.
Damon, I mean, they've got some players there that have been mentioned. People have mentioned about Adam Reach. Is there anybody in the Sheffield Wednesday squad that say they did get relegated? Any that you would be thinking about maybe trying to get on board with the Boro for next season?
Well, I think there's two that come to mind for me. I think one's probably a certainty he'll probably come here, which is Kadeem Harris. The other one is probably I would like to see Josh Windass here, because I think he's a really good player. Adam Reed should probably go to I wouldn't say like a Reading maybe or something. I wouldn't say there's many. No, just them two.
Right. Okay. And obviously,
Jacob Ross has just hit the nail. Barry Bannon. He just keeps the ball retention. He keeps the ball moving. But what worries me about him? He always looks good on the TV, but he's been at Sheffield Wednesday a hell of a long time now, and if he was any better, he'd have been snapped up.
Yeah, he's a journeyman.
He'd do a decent job for us, Dave. Next season.
It's just 31-year-old signing again. We keep talking and changing every season players, and yet people want to sign people like Barry Bannon, and then they're complaining that we go back to square one. It's like the club can't win either way here.
Yeah. I'd rather go for young, dynamic, hungry players, even if they were from like League One or League Two, rather than going to people that have been there and done it and not done it in the Championship.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, James, on that. I mean, sometimes you fall lucky with those temporary signings, don't you? But it's not very often.
Yeah. I mean, David,
There's always
Neil Warnock.
sorry, James. There's always one or two that you're going to pick up in the free agents that are going to be hidden gems, aren't you? But apart from that, you've got to look at League One players, as you said, and it's got to be young and pacey players as well. Hungry.
We're desperately lacking, isn't it, pace, and we have for a while. David, I mean, it's well documented. Obviously, Neil Warnock's Sheffield United ties, and obviously he was manager at Bramall Lane for a long time. He was a boyhood blade. How much pleasure do you think it would give him to knock the final nail in Sheffield Wednesday's coffin at the weekend?
Yeah, much pleasure, wouldn't it? And as much as it's pleasing for him, it's disappointing that we're even talking about that, isn't it? It just shows how far our season's dropped. But yeah, I'm sure he'll get a lot of satisfaction knocking that nail in the coffin, James. Like I say, if they come to us and they're already relegated, then I can't see much of being one for the neutrals to watch on Saturday, unfortunately.
Yeah, it'd be brutal, yeah. I mean, this is a good one here from Paul Nicholas. Thanks for getting in touch with us, Paul. Throw it your way, Tony. He said, I've switched off from this season now, and I'm thinking of next season. Just my opinion, but Warnock should be judged on next season as it should be his team then. Play the kids now and see how they do. And also saying there about agreeing with us about Sheffield Wednesday, one of the favourite away days. It's a proper old-fashioned ground. Do you go along with that? That Warnock, at least, he must have earned the time to do or have a go next season because of what he's done at the back end of last season for the majority of this. He deserves to go with next season. But as you say, it is a concern that it's only for one season, isn't it?
Yeah, but I was talking to, I can't remember who I was talking to the other day, but when you look at, it was a Leeds fan I was talking to. When you're looking at, the managers that we've had since Karanka, we've had God knows how many managers since Karanka, and Warnock's been at our club now 18 months, and he's still got Gary Monk's players in his squad, and that's what's happened to Leeds. That's what's happened to a lot of teams in the past. Liverpool, where they've chopped and changed managers, where managers have signed players. And the manager's come in and he's had to deal with these players, wearing these signings. And I think Warnock's the only one that's come in and he's wanted to clear everyone out and start from scratch, with his own players. At the end of the day, Boro was out on loan last season. Guesty was injured again. He's got the best out of them two. So he's brought Grant Hall in, which he mentioned. So David touched on it earlier. There's a lot of players he's brought in, and if he does get rid of Britta Sombalonga and Fletcher, I think he loves Marvin Johnson. Who brought Marvin Johnson to the club? Was it Pulis?
Gary Monk.
Gary Monk, yeah. So it will be pretty much his squad next season, and the only concerning thing about that is it's only going to be for a season. If he gets us up, I think he'll stay on, but he'll get all his players in, and I'm just hoping there's something in place, and someone comes in who's going to work alongside Warnock with a squad which he's brought in, so there's a bit of continuity, James. So we're not chopping and changing managers, we're not bringing bits and bobs of players in from here, there, and everywhere, and having a disjointed squad where, like you say, full of different cliques. See, the cliques we must have in our dressing room, I don't know what Fletcher's on, but I dare say Fletcher and Britt are the top earners at our club, and and they can cause some trouble. Money talks, and I remember when we brought George Saville in. He must have frigging jumped at the chance when he came to the Borough, because I dare say he was on a pittance at Millwall. And I dare say any pay rise to him was a bonus. So,
Peter Ridsdale was involved in transfer negotiations that day?
Pardon, James?
Do you think Peter Ridsdale was involved in the transfer negotiations that day?
I dare say he was, mate, yeah. Bloody hell.
Just going to say, Tony, do you think it's far-fetched, or do you think it's out of our league now? One of the viewers mentioned earlier on about a manager that may be available. He is available at the moment, but is he out of our league in terms of Chris Wilder? could you see him maybe coming on board alongside Warnock next season, or do you think that's just too far-fetched?
I could see Chris Wilder coming in on his own. That would be an absolutely fantastic option, because he took the Premier League by storm because he played a different way. Leeds have done the same this season, and they'll get found out the same way Sheffield United get found out next season. But I dare say there'll be a queue of clubs looking for Chris Wilder's services, and I hope if Warnock, is looking to bring someone in, it'd be someone like him. But whether he'd come as a number 2 to Warnock, that's a question. So it is a bit far fetched, but it's something for us as fans to think about. It'd be a great situation to be in, because I think he'd done a fantastic job at Sheffield United.
You see, Tony, I wouldn't have minded Eddie Howe, to be honest. I think he's another one who can bring some bit of exciting, and he's a young manager. He did it at Bournemouth. Why not?
These types of managers.
Well, we'll leave that manager. Obviously, we've got a manager for next season. I know we're just looking maybe further, a bit longer term than that. But just taking it to Saturday, boys, what's the prediction going to be against Sheffield Wednesday? David, come to you first, mate.
It depends on the situation for me. If Sheffield Wednesday, if they're already relegated, if they already are, it's going to be a neutral and it can go either way. If they've got something to fight for, I think it's very much in the same category as the Rotherham game, that we need to be up for that fight. So can't really give a defining answer on Saturday yet because of the situation, but I'd like to see us go out and attack and win.
Yeah. How about you, Damo?
2-0 Boro.
2-0 Boro. Bit of confidence straight to the point there. And Tony, for you?
Three 0 Boro.
Yeah.
Put the Yorkshire bastards down.
I must admit, I fancy us for a win on Saturday. I think we will beat Sheffield Wednesday. It might not be pretty, but I think we'll beat them. So that's all Boro things, lads. Now, obviously, in the last 24 hours, the big news that's broken has been about the European Super League. David, I'll come to you first. What was your thoughts when you had that news break yesterday afternoon?
Absolute disgrace. Greedy owners. Feel sorry for the fans more than anyone else, and it's just caused a massive divide. It's been talked about since 2019, and it got put on the back burner then. Obviously, it's been going on behind the scenes. What I found interesting was Paris Saint-Germain's president is part of the UEFA committee, so you can't tell me that UEFA haven't known that this is going to be coming out in the press shortly. But yeah, it's the fans I feel sorry for. It's ruining the game we love, and it just shows that what we've all spoken about on this show and with our friends, that football's being taken over by money, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's been that way for a while. And do you think it was almost inevitable that something like this might happen, Damo?
I think it was in the plans for years, wasn't it? I mean, you're talking when I was little, there was plans. But for me, it's ruining the football as we know it is gone, because it's a money game, and unfortunately, clubs. I'm not saying ourselves, but low clubs. We can be in that bracket. It's going to cost us. It's going to cost us because clubs, and Gary Neville got it spot on. It's going to cost other clubs big, probably go out of business because of this.
Go on, Tony. I know you're itching to say a few things on this. I mean, what's your take on it all?
What Damon's just said there about other clubs, believe me, Damon, this will affect our club. We could lose our club over this because, it has been spoke about for years, but I thought it'd always be underneath the UEFA banner. I thought it'd always be something UEFA had set up. But for it to be some people from America, you know, JP Morgan, to be setting up a Super League alongside every other competition, it's an absolute joke, and it's an insult that the owners of these 6 clubs, you know, you've got an American who owns Arsenal, you've got Americans own Liverpool, you've got Americans own Man United, you've got the Arabs own Man City, and like Gary Neville said, these are faceless people. Abramovich isn't even allowed in the country. Man City and Tottenham, they haven't even won the Champions League or the Old European Cup. You know what I mean? Tottenham haven't even won the Premier League. You've got Everton building a 60,000-seat stadium. You know, 60,000 people, Evertonians. Why aren't they classed as a big club? It's an absolute travesty what they're going to do with the football. And I dare say there's fans out there, you know, wanting it to happen. But it'll be the death. It'll be the death it'll be the death of the Football League for a start. The Premier League's going to be diluted because these teams are going to have to be kicked out of the Premier League. We can't allow teams to go toppling off on a Wednesday and a Thursday to go play in another competition, which is going to make them even more wealthy than what they are now. So that creates an imbalance in the Premier League because them 6 clubs will keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, where, you know, they're going to benefit from the profits from the Premier League. They're going to benefit from the rights of this European League. And really, they're just looking down the nose at every other club in the country. And for me, I've just bitten a lot of them now. Bitten a lot. Like you say, there's a lot of history. Man United and Liverpool are the 2 biggest clubs in the world for me. And they should be just, you know, I think Gary Neville said, just strip them of absolutely everything. Take all the money off them, take all the medals off them, and bin them now.
Can I just say, Tony, that for me as well, what if this Super League fails? I don't think they should be allowed back in the Premier League at all. That would be their own fault. It would be their own downside.
It won't be set up to fail. It won't be set up to fail because there's going to be that much money ploughed into it. The stadiums will be half empty. It'll all be done on corporate. It'll be all big business. You know what I mean? All the boxes will be full because all these advertising companies, TV companies, they'll totally take the stadiums over. There'll be hardly any real fans in these stadiums. I dare say they'll move them around the world, most of the games, and it's just going to destroy everything for us as football fans. It's going to take it away from us. The dreaming will stop. You're going to have I made a statement the other day, yesterday when it all came out. The World Cup in years to come, if this starts, it'll be like watching the Johnson Paint Trophy because none of these top players will be allowed to play for the countries. They're on about the legal side of things, but when you've got a memory like mine, something similar happened in the 70s within cricket, where a lot of cricketers broke away to go play for a man called Kerry Packer in a World Series. Not one of them players were allowed to come back and play for England. So it can happen, and God, I hope it happens because it can happen. And the FA, I've been listening to the TV tonight, even in the Houses of Parliament, they stood up there, and even they're going to try and put a block on it. So it's gone as high as Parliament now.
Guesty, it can't go ahead without the Premier League 14 other clubs' approval, and they ain't going to agree to that either. So I can't see it going ahead anyway, to be fair.
Dave, yeah, but you've got another 3 teams from England that could be involved in it. You know what I mean? You've got the six there already. They've got 12 teams. There's another 3 teams to come, and then they're going to add another 5 teams, you know, with their different league positions and, you know, different teams. And that's how they're going to do it every season, change 5 teams every season. But the original 12 are never going to be relegated.
Can I just say, I was just going to say, Tony, just playing devil's advocate here, can you have any real sympathy, though, for the likes of the Premier League when, at the end of the day, they broke away from the Football League in 1992 and they didn't care less about it? You've got Sky Sports who rode all over the back of that and have been drilling everyone for money for the last 30 years, for paying for watching football. And now they're getting on their high horse about this European Super League, which is wrong. But at the end of the day, these people were happy to go along with all that in 1992. Now, because they're not at the forefront of this, oh, it's the worst thing that's ever happened to football, and what a disgrace. Yeah. This day's been coming, hasn't it, since you give in and let them have the Premier League in 92?
100%.
Yeah, but it's us as the fans. It's us fans that were hammered in 1992, James, when the Premier League came along. And you've got, like you say, the Premier League, UEFA and FIFA. They're only looking, like you just said there, they're only looking after their own interests at the end of the day.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, and like you say, on the back of it, the likes of Sky are going to lose out massively because they won't receive no TV rights. I think everything will go through American companies.
Yeah.
Your ESPNs and Fox News and things like that. Even Amazon, you know, see, it was the Premier League. You know,
as well.
The Premier League's such a massive company, or whatever you want to call it now.
Brand.
They should be running. They should be running themselves, James.
Yeah. Well, I was just about to say that, Guesty.
I've heard Simon Jordan on about it on Talk Sport, and he talks some sense sometimes. And like you say, they could be making a hell of a lot more money than what they are now. They don't, you know, without Sky. But
yeah, how can you have the best 20 in a league when Borussia Dortmund can't be in there, Bayern Munich can't be in there because their club is owned 51% by the supporters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's what we should be looking at to introduce into England, shouldn't we? And you would stop all of this.
Yeah.
Well, that's why the government are getting involved now. It should have been regulated years ago. You know what I mean? This is what, and they're deciding they're going to start and do something now. Like you say, that's the way forward. Them German clubs are run absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Nicholas has been in touch there, lads, and he's just said money's made football a non-contest for poorer clubs now. If the Big Six leave, it'll make the leagues more competitive and not ruled by the richest. Thank God for Steve Gibson. Do you think the interest will still remain in this country, though, Damon, for our domestic game if the Big Six did leave and weren't a part of our, say, top flight?
I think it'll lose a spark for sure in this league. But as I said, they go off there, do their own thing. That's greed. So is it more money for the lower teams that are going to get it, the likes of us, Blackburn and other teams? Is it going to be more competitive? Who knows? Only future can decide that.
Yeah.
Too many unanswered questions for it to go ahead, I think.
Yeah. I think
what you said there about the Premier League, James, when that did come along, like you say, I remember the FA and the Out Football League, you know, going absolutely mental with was it Rick Parry?
Parry was involved, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and as a football fan, you felt absolutely gutted. But at the end of the day, the Premier League was set up, and it has done exactly what it said on the tin. It's brought the world's best players to our league, you know, at different in different decades while it's been going. So, yeah, the Premier League's all about greed, and the UEFA's all about greed. You know, even in UEFA,
FIFA, the whole thing at the top. You look at how things are World Cups. You know,
it's all about money. But
yeah,
I think this European Super League, it's a stab in the back to every fan. I don't think it's about the brands. I think it's the way it's just stabbing us fans in the back, James. Every single one of us who loves football, it's just a kick in the nads for all of us.
But yet these supporters of these top six clubs, because they love the club so much, they'll still buy the football shirts, they'll still buy the season tickets, and really by doing that, they're actually supporting what the owners are doing. If they really dislike what Liverpool and Arsenal are doing, what their owners are doing, should I say, they should be walking away from supporting that football club, which I know is easier said than done. I would struggle to do it with Middlesbrough and go support a local lower league team, because you're more or less feeding their owners exactly what they want by still buying that merchandise, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, Gareth Jones has been in touch, and I know I said there about the football for me changed when the Premier League came along. And yes, the Premier League brought us the likes of Gini. He probably wouldn't have come to the Boro if it wasn't for the money that was involved then. But the game's even moved on from when Janino was at the Boro. And like, if we got promoted to the Premier League in the next year or two, you know for a fact, Damon, if we go up, we're going to be absolute cannon fodder. And that's just the way it is now. There's a massive gap even for those clubs that get promoted. Like, we got promoted, and within a year, we were buying players like Janino. We won't be able to do stuff like that now.
It's been us, and us. If you put us and Man City, we're up here. Man City, we're down here. Sorry, Man City are up there. You know, it's about 20, 30 year gap in terms of revenue for where we are and where we want to be. And we, like I say, we're always going to be an up and down club. We'll probably go up and come back down. But the good thing about that is that you get parachute payments. That's the only good thing. But that's only over a 2-year period, is it? I don't know.
2 years now, yeah. And sorry there, David Ball's, for me, hit the nail on the head. FIFA and UEFA are two of the most corrupt organisations ever. And things like we were saying there about the World Cup, bidding with Qatar, getting the World Cup, and all the sort of alleged dealings that were going on behind the scenes there about making sure Qatar got the World Cup and stuff like that. I mean, that's why, in a way, I can have very little sympathy with some of these organisations that are coming out today and complaining about what's happening with this European Super League. I don't agree with it, but they've got no right at all, have they, to complain?
No, and some of the chairman that's having a whinge, I have no sympathy with them either. But like you say, the president of UEFA and FIFA, with these statements that's coming out today, you know, I have absolutely no sympathy. When all this carry on was on with Sepp Blatter, you know, I was hoping that, you know, some countries would have the balls, you know, to pull out of FIFA and start their own world governing bodies, you know what I mean? Because that company's rotten to the core, and I dare say it's still today. You know what I mean, James? So, and it's always made me feel, you know, why is none of these countries ever said, right, look, we're not going to play under FIFA's banner no more, you know what I mean, and move on and create our own World Cups and our own competitions. But it's never happened, you know what I mean? So they're absolutely, they're a massive force. Obviously, they're the world governing body, but this is the home of football. You know, football was created in England, and it just leaves a nasty taste in your mouth with the likes of UEFA and FIFA, especially when they start dictating down to us about poppies and God knows what.
Yeah. Well, I've got no doubt, lads, and everyone out there, that we'll be talking about this in the next few weeks before we end this season. Unfortunately, that's our time up, everyone, for tonight. My thanks go to Tony, David, and Damon for joining me. And thanks to everyone out there for contributing to the show. It's been fantastic to see your views, and obviously everybody's really emotional about what's going on in football at the minute, and our club as well at the Boro. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to Boro Fan TV, and please join us again next Monday night for the Monday night show. Until then, good night and up the Boro.
Up the Boro.
Up the Boro.